Welcome, everyone. My name is Terence Darling. Prem, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Premlata Balan.
Okay, this is the Telford Agile Meetup. Quick, just under the introductions, I'll mention our sponsors are Capgemini. Capgemini sponsor the Meetup, and JJ from Wiser Tribes lets us use her Zoom account. So thanks to our sponsors. Tonight, we've got a talk from Jonathan Kessel-Fell on Sendatsu and the art of leadership. We'll then go on to maybe a Q&A session, and then we'll talk about what is next, and we'll do a wrap-up. So, Jonathan, if you are ready, I will hand over to yourself.
Right, let's have a look. So, share a screen, share a window, pick one of those, and go with that. Okay, so hopefully everybody can see my screen.
Yes, we can
Yes.
see.
Excellent, wonderful. So, give you a little bit of background. I am an enterprise agile coach. I've been playing in the world of agility for, well, if you include the little bits of lean at the start, a little over 20 years. And I stopped counting in the business at 30 years. So, you know, I've worked my way through a whole pile of stuff. I've worked as a tester, a developer. I've then moved into agile tester, and then into scrum master, and then into agile coach, and then into enterprise agile coach over, you know, the span of about 20 odd years. This comes out of a situation that I had experienced in a lot of the transformations that I've been supporting. So I've found that in those transformations, they have come to realize that, you know, we live in a very sort of stormy, sort of volatile, very fast changing world, as we all know. You know, we've all heard the term VUCA for that volatility and uncertainty. And we're looking for ways in which organizations can change and do those things and support those things. But the problem that we had was trying to understand what leadership is in that space. You know, there are fancy words for absolutely everything that's going on there, but leadership is leadership. You know, what is it? And especially when you look at where leadership comes from and what it is we're trying to achieve, we know that it comes from, well, at least the management side of it, comes from the second industrial revolution, all the stuff that went on around there with Frederick Taylor and Taylorism, and a lot of the management sort of learning and ideas and teaching that still take place today in university are all around that Tayloristic approach to management and to leadership. And there needed to be something different. There needed to be something that would enable us as leaders that we could latch onto to deal with this changing world that we're finding ourselves in. So I went and dug all over the place, and I went and checked loads of different languages. And the word that I found was Sendatsu. So Sendatsu, for me trying to find a word that defined leadership in the 21st century and beyond, I actually picked up the word Sendatsu, which is over 1,000 years old. But when I looked at it, and when I looked at what Sendatsu meant, it sort of triggered a whole pile of thinking and a whole pile of introspection and inspiration as well. So what is a Sendatsu? Well, Sendatsu is a spiritual mountain leader. What is it that they did? Well, in the time of ancient Japan, you had the Shinto religion. The Shinto religion was all about what was out there, going out and experiencing the countryside, the mountains, the forests, because it was very much connected with the countryside and the surroundings, and the spirits that were there. But of course, these were dangerous places. They were unknown places. They weren't really mapped out. And for these, the leaders of the time, the shogun warriors, the emperors, the well-to-do people that wanted to go on these journeys of exploration and growth, they needed somebody to go with them. And that was a Sendatsu. Sendatsu was somebody that had taken that pathway before, that knew what was out there, and would guide those people as they took that journey. So what does that relate to leadership? Well, when you look at Sendatsu, Sendatsu is broken up into three main areas. You've got a leader, somebody who is in charge of, and definitely we've used it here, is in charge of those sort of shrines, those places where people would go and stay overnight while they were on their journeys, those sort of retreats and houses. And they were in charge of those places to try and create and nurture the right sort of environment for continual learning, for continual growth, being able to create what we would call a psychologically safe environment to ask loads of really sort of weird questions, or to be comfortable in not showing their understanding and taking the opportunity to learn and to grow. They were also responsible, as I've said, for being that guide. When I look at that guide, that is somebody that steps onto that pathway and invites others to join them, invites them to join them on that adventure, and walks side by side them as they take that journey, pointing out the good and the bad, the dangers, and the great learning opportunities. Okay, so in a way, that is a leader that is becoming a bit more like a coach. And then the final one is that pioneer side. As well as guiding on the existing paths, part of the role of a Sendatsu was to go out into the unknown and to go through that and show them how, what else is out there, what sort of environments are out there, what sort of learning opportunities are out there, and to go and find new paths and new shrines and new places where you can grow and develop your understanding. Okay, so being brave, being visionary, and taking those steps out into the unknown. So those were the three areas of Sendatsu. Now let's have a look at each one of those in detail just briefly. So the first one, a leader. So lovely quote from Simon Sinek: the responsibility of leadership is not to come up with all the ideas, but to create an environment in which great ideas can thrive. So that's what we want to do as a leader. We want to create the right environment, the psychological safe environment in which ideas can be put forward without ridicule, the right questions can be asked, the right queries and concerns can be raised. The only way that we're going to get continuous improvement and development and growth is if we feel comfortable enough to ask the right sort of questions, to point out the things that are troubling us. If we're frightened and we don't share those things, we will never then be able to inspect those and improve the right things going forward. Brilliant example of this is Alan Mullally. So Alan joined quite some time ago. He's no longer the CEO, but he joined the Ford Motor Company. When he joined the Ford Motor Company, he pulled all of the leaders together and said, okay, we've got some real problems here. We need to address an issue. We've looked at the figures and we're on target to lose $17 billion this year. Where are we? And he went round to all of his leads in that room, and they all said, oh, no, you know, my project's fine. You know, we're on track. We're green. Everything's fine. It's lovely. Thank you. Thank you for asking. And at the end of that, he said, well, if all of you are on target, all of your work is green, does that mean you actually planned to lose $17 billion at the start of the year? Was that your objective? And of course it wasn't. And then one person put their hand up and said, well, to be honest, I am having this problem, this problem, this problem, this problem. In reality, my project is not green, it is red. And I don't know what to do about it. I don't know how to fix this problem. Now, what do you think was Alan's response? Well, what he did was he stood up in the room and applauded and congratulated and recognized the bravery of that person and said, that is the type of leadership that we want. That is an exceptional leader, one who is more interested in the well-being of the organization and the company than their own discomfort. And by doing so, set the standard, basically set the environment that said, okay, we're here to solve issues and to solve problems. And therefore, I want you to come to this meeting with your issues and your problems. And guess what? In the time that Alan Mulally was with them, they turned that organization around, and now Ford is one of the strongest automotive companies that are out there. Okay. But it all came from him creating the right culture and environment. Another person, and I was really, really honored to be Michael's personal coach. I was his Agile coach. He was the CIO for Euroclear GTS, one of the biggest divisions that they've got within that organization. And he came in and he did something similar. He realized that when we were starting out, and we knew that we needed to make a change, there would be a transformation towards a more agile way of working. We spent the first, 7-8 months purely focusing on the culture, on what was going on. And he introduced a crazy concept. So big fan of Star Wars, just like myself. And we discussed a whole pile of stuff, and he decided to create a culture bubble within the organization. And he called it the Rebel Alliance. And in that Rebel Alliance, he put posters up and everything had some sort of little link to Star Wars in it. All the boards around the building, not just the actual sprint boards or Kanban boards, but the leadership boards, the big Obeya rooms, everything had pictures of, Star Wars Lego characters, Star Wars Lego vehicles. The logos are all around. Now, why did we do this? Well, it created a very visual environment that wherever you were and whatever you went to and whatever you picked up, there was always that little reminder to say, we are allowed to act differently. He kicked it off at the start. There was a big meeting where he was very open on it and said, look, we are now going to be different. He'd just come in as the CIO for that space. He said, we're going to be different. We're going to act differently. We're going to behave differently, and I expect you to hold me to account, and he was wonderful. If somebody was struggling to find a room, and they could always go to him and say, can we borrow your office? And he'd say, yeah, fine, have it. Most of the time, he actually set out on the desks, out with the other people, putting that guide element in. Gemba, as we would say, go and see what is going on. So he put that into effect. Both of these gentlemen created the environment in which real change could not only start and take place, but become really rooted and last for a long time. The next one is guide. I've deliberately chosen a Torii gate for this particular principle. The reason being is, if you think about a gate in the Western world, or good part of the world, a gate is something that stops you from entering. It is a protection. It is a blocker. It is something that you have to have permission to get past. A Torii gate is different. A Torii gate is always open. It is there not to block your progress on a longer path, but is there to invite you to take that journey. It is there to invite you to step through it onto that path and explore. And that's what we need to do ourselves as individuals, but also as leaders. That we need to create an environment and space where we are showing the people the excitement that we have around all the things that we've got, and inviting people to join us on those journeys, inviting them to join us as we discover, as we learn, as we change, as we adapt, as we grow, all of those things. Okay. So what is an example of that? Well, let's stick with the Star Wars theme. I absolutely love The Mandalorian. Okay, wonderful, wonderful TV show. It's currently up for a whole pile of Emmys at the moment. But the person that put it together was the gentleman you see in the middle, Jon Favreau, the director. Okay. Now, of course, Jon Favreau is already a hero in my eyes because he was the director of the very first Iron Man movie that started out the whole of the Marvel craze. Okay, so he's already a hero in my space. But he then did something that was absolutely amazing. For The Mandalorian, he would be a guide, but he wanted to invite a whole pile of other directors in and help them to grow their craft. He brought them in from the world of cartoons. He brought directors in from, sort of industry type videos, not films or movies, but more documentary type things. And just one or two really crazy off the wall type people. Brought them all together and helped them develop and grow their craft. And as they took that journey, he was there at their side, supporting them, helping them, showing them, getting them to sort of say, well, what are your ideas? How are you going to approach this? Absolute brilliant idea. How are you going to put that into practice? You don't know. Okay. Have you thought of this? And he would show them bits as they went along. Okay. And he really developed some amazing people in that space. Funny enough, two of those directors, one of them is there on the screen, went on to win Oscars. So there you've got the director of Jojo Rabbit. Okay. So you can see that he took that opportunity to, he was put in charge to direct, but he turned the whole of the process into a learning opportunity to develop the next generation of brilliant directors. Let's have a look at the last one. Okay. So again, a wonderful quote. Every time you are tempted to react to the same old way, ask if you want to be a prisoner of the past or a pioneer of the future. I love that because that's where a lot of our organizations are. Funny enough, I had a leadership session this morning with a whole pile of people from a big financial institution in the UK. And they were saying, well, this is the way it is. We can't change it. We're very restricted. We're in a very heavy, area of compliance, regulation. We just can't do it differently. They were a prisoner of the past. What they needed to do was understand that they need to actually have that bravery that we spoke and step out into the unknown and go and ask some questions, go and try out something, go and experiment, have a chat with the regulators, have a chat with the auditors, see what can happen. And guess what? When they did start having that conversation, it opened up a whole host of different opportunities to them that would vastly improve the way in which they were working within their space. So we have to be bold enough to take those steps. I want to give you some thoughts on this, though. With that, with that step out into the unknown, there are going to be risks. I want to give you one example. 1974, the Golf GTI. Well, actually, the Golf GTI did not exist at that time. It was just a small two-door family car, the small bog standard 1974 Mark I Golf. But the engineers knew that they could do something with this. So they went to the management and said, we want to try this out. And the managers went, no, it's a family car. Stop. So what did the engineers do? Well, they stole one of the cars off the production line, put it at the back of the factory, and worked on it in their own time and at weekends, and developed the Golf GTI. They then took that to the management and said, you said don't. Well, we did. They took a risk. This is the car that we've developed, and we think that this is going to be huge. The managers were really angry, and they said, right, you need to sell 5,000 of these units to break even. Okay? If you don't, you are all fired without pension, without reference, without anything. They actually sold of the Mark I Golf almost 250,000, not 5,000. Okay. It was huge. It was all over the world. It even invented the new idea of a hot hatchback. And, and from that, you've got the Peugeot 205 came in, the Renault 5, there's a whole host of different cars. But it all came from that very first Golf GTI. And those engineers willing to risk their employment, their future. Let me give you another example. The Prince of Wales. Again, back in the 70s, in fact, 1970, he actually stood at the Synod Assembly in Wales and shared some concerns about the environment and about the world and about non-recyclable plastics and the way plastics were getting into the countryside and into the waterways and were being washed out to sea. In 1970. Now, I remember some of the press of the 70s and 80s, early 80s, because Prince Charles was a bit crazy, he talks to trees. I remember that being a headline on one of the newspapers. But isn't it strange that after all those years, 50 odd years down the line, we now know pretty much everything that he was saying is correct, and we're now trying to address it. We know about the plastics. We know about microplastics in the water systems. We know about the plastics in the oceans that are causing problems. We know about the damage that we've done to the environment. Just imagine what the world would be like today if 50 years ago we'd listened to Prince Charles and not thought him a madman. But that is a risk that you need to take. If you want to be a pioneer, you need to be willing for people around you to think that you're crazy, you know, and try and find support and try and find help. And as a leader, if you see somebody that is trying to do something, can you look at it and think, actually, do you know what? That's really quite good. Then get behind them and support them and help them. Being a pioneer is not just going out and doing it yourself and being that leader, but it's also being the first or second follower of that person. Because with a good, strong follower behind them, that leader stops being a lone nut and moves into being, actually, these people are now listening and following. I'm going to follow and go and have a look at it myself. And that's the way in which you get more followers. Followers follow the first followers. They don't really follow the leader. And we need to be able to create the right environment and the space to bring that about. Now, something else from a pioneer point of view, and for this one, we need to start looking at advances. Okay. So this was a brilliant thing. I'm going back to the Mandalorian. I've got it. You'll mostly notice behind me, you know, I've got my Lego Star Wars stuff. And I know, you know, Terrence is exactly the same. You can see all of his sort of Star Wars stuff behind him. But this one here just absolutely blew me away. Industrial Light and Magic and Epic Games got together. They wanted to find a new way of having a soundstage. And they used the Unreal Engine, a real-time graphical creativity tool. And you can put a design and a feel in, and then as you move around, it changes and renders in real time. And this place was called The Volume. Now, there's some phenomenal videos out there around the volume and what the volume is. But it has totally revolutionized the way in which we now shoot not just TV programs, but movies. You know, so with this, you can create something on the floor, and then the walls all around it and the ceiling above is totally computer generated. And if you want to film some stuff around the sunset, guess what? You can have a 10-hour sunset if you wanted to. Or you can film in 5 different locations in a single day, because it would just create it and create it real time. If any of you have seen The Mandalorian and look at the things that are going on around them, the majority of the stuff around is totally computer generated and is not green screen. It doesn't have any post-processing. It is exactly as it was shot, because everything is rendered in real time. And it also means that you can then have really reflective, you know, surfaces, like, for example, the Mandalorian's armor, because it's reflecting the things that are around him. So if you've got a camera pointing at him, at his face, and it's looking to one side, you will see the landscape and everything around reflected. Completely change the way in which we are currently and in the future going to film movies. So my suggestion is for you to go out and become a Sendatsu. Not just from your position of where you are, but also your position and as you support the leaders around you as well, and help them become Sendatsus. Understand that they need to become a great leader, a great guide,
yes, of
and
course,
a great pioneer. If you want to know more, you can go and find me I have created 4 articles on this. There's the base article, which is the introduction to Sendatsu, and then I've got 3 articles after that, each one looking at the 3 areas, one of leader, one of guide, and one of pioneer. And a lot of the things that we've spoken about, you'll find additional things in there. There'll be links to some of the videos that I've spoken about. There'll be a whole pile of stuff around Sendatsu that you can pick up. So go and find me on LinkedIn, go and find the articles, and hopefully you will be able to draw something from those and from the other material, the other resources that are in there. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So are you comfortable doing a Q&A, John, if people have got any questions?
I am very comfortable in doing a Q&A on that.
Okay, I'll let's check the chat, see if people want to put their hands up or... Prem's got a question. I think. Yeah, Prem, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, John, for such a lovely talk on leadership. It's much needed talk, especially among Agile communities. You mentioned that followers follow the first follower. They don't follow the leaders. How does one create that first follower?
Now that's a really interesting question, because depending on what is happening, you might not actually be going out to create the first follower. Okay. There is a wonderful, wonderful video that you can watch on YouTube called The Dancing Man. And it's about the development of a movement within about 4 or 5 minutes. And that talks about being the first follower. Now, from what I've seen on that, from the experiences that I've had, it's more of a leadership decision to be that first follower, to be looking at all of the things that are going on around you, to be looking beyond your normal space, your area of, ownership or responsibility or whatever it is, and try and find those people out there that are doing something different, that looks good, and then choose to be that follower. Okay, that's where you're going to get the real impact. But it does mean we need to be going out and looking beyond. So, for example, if you're in finance, go and have a look at the automotive industry and see what they're doing. Okay. They've done exactly the same thing. I worked with Volvo up in Sweden a number of years ago, and they incorporated Taleb's barbell principle from the world of investment. And when you're doing investments, you don't invest all of your money in one thing. You split your money up to protect it and to keep it safe. And if you want some high returns, you'll take the amount of money you're willing to lose and you will drop that into a high risk, possibly high return fund. And the rest of your money you put into a low risk, low return that will be safe, and that will then give you, like a steady small little trickle of money coming in. And if everything goes wrong, you haven't lost all of your money. You haven't put all of your eggs in one basket. Volvo did exactly the same thing. They wanted to get into electric cars, but it was a really risky, this was quite a few years ago. It was a really risky thing for them to do. So what did they do? They created a completely separate company called Polestar. And if Polestar had had some real issues and had gone under, it would not have affected Volvo in any way, shape, or form. And that money was already allocated. And so, if we lose it, we lose it. It's not going to be a problem. In reality, Polestar is absolutely brilliant. The electric cars that they're producing are wonderful. The design and the quality is absolutely beautiful. And therefore, now some of the things that have worked really well in Polestar are now starting to drift back into the mainstream Volvo brand. Okay, so that's what I mean about when you're looking for disruptive innovation and things to try out that are just completely new. If you're in finance, don't just stay in finance. Go and have a look elsewhere. I've worked with teams that were running operation centers that were looking after the server racks, and that they were having a problem cooling the server racks. How did they solve the problem? They went to the medical world, and they looked at the way in which they cool bodies during operations. Because if you've got to cool a body during an operation, it heals a lot better. It doesn't get affected by the operation quite as much. And therefore, they used the ideas and principles from that and brought it into the service centers, enabled the servers to be running at a cooler temperature, which meant that they were more effective. So that's what we say, look beyond, find out the crazy stuff, and then decide yourself to be a follower and take it forward.
Yep. Thank you. That's a wonderful answer.
Warwick's asked the question, which is quite a good one, which is the meaning of a risk issue about the Golf GTI. What do you think would have happened if they'd been caught before they had completed it? So when they were working on the weekends and things.
That's a really, really good question. And I can see it's coming from Warwick, so I would expect Warwick to ask the dodgy questions. Do you know, I still would have thought, I think they would have still allowed it. And it's a real strange thing. My mother is German, okay? My mother also taught me some very, very useful information. And this is quite a strange thing for a mother to teach her son. But it is easier to gain forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. Okay? That has put me in good stead for a lot of the transformational work that I've done around the world. Because I've helped people realize, a bit like that pioneer side, a bit like the guide sort of side, just get out onto the path, start the journey. And then if somebody turns around and says, hey, what are you doing? Oh, well, we're halfway through it now, we might as well get it finished. And we'll see where we go from there. Oh, by the way, you do realize that this is absolutely brilliant. And these are the results that we're getting. So occasionally it's that sort of guerrilla tactic.
Interestingly, John, it's exactly how the XJ220 was built at Jaguar.
Exactly.
It was the exact same principle. So yeah. So no, I'm sorry for the awkward question.
No, ask him, mate. But it's right, and it's not just in it's not just from the automotive world. You think about some of the things. You are most probably, every single one of us, looking at your working environment and thinking, seriously, that could change. We could really do with changing that. So change it. Go and have a go. Prove that it works better. If it doesn't, don't tell anybody. But, try it out. See if it works better. Have that experiment. And then go and sort of say, right, we've got an idea. This is our idea. This is what we think it will do. Oh, by the way, we've been doing it for the last 6 months, and that's why you've seen this increase in productivity. Would you like us to roll it out everywhere else?
Yeah. I forgot. I'll see if anyone else has got their hand up. Well, they haven't. I will ask a question. So, do you see the pioneers following that pioneers, settlers, and town planners model almost that you would put in within Scrum teams, but at a higher level in leadership? Right?
So your pioneers, your settlers, and your town planners. I would say the pioneers are the first ones out and the first followers.
Yeah.
I would say that the settlers are those that are maybe fourth or fifth followers, that are, it's still a risk, but they've seen somebody do something different and they're giving it a go. I see the town planners, I'm going to be nice here. I see the town planners as those that have seen everybody else take risks, and it's now they would be seen as weak or not as good as they could be because everybody else is now doing it. That's the way in which we should work. Okay, that's the way in which we should do stuff. So they come in and say, right, you know, everybody, brilliant job. Now I will now put some order and structure around this. All right. I could, yeah, you know, let's really throw a spanner in the works with this one. Okay. Safe, scaled agile. Okay. Would you put them in the world of pioneer? Would you put them in the world of settler? Or would you put them in the world of town planner? Okay. Now, the thing is, I've been around long enough that I knew a lot of the stuff that's in SAFe before SAFe even existed. I'm actually very honored to know a lot of the people that worked at Nokia, which is where SAFe was developed. You know, Jürgen Hesselberg was there, a good friend of mine. And, you know, you speak to him and you think they basically just took all the work of all of these other people and made a pretty picture, made it look good, and have now created a very good model for making some money out of it. Now, that is somebody that is an SPC. That is somebody that has been to Boulder. That is somebody that sat down with all of the guys and had the same sort of conversation. Okay. That doesn't take away from the fact that there are a lot of really good things in SAFe. Okay. And there's nothing wrong in going and looking at those. But once you understand and have seen that and that scaling, ask the question, what isn't working for me? What can I improve? What can I change? Does that mean you're going to move away from the wholly written text? Yes, it does. The same applies with the Scrum Guide. Okay. But make it work for you. Get it working well, and then be a pioneer and sort of say, right, where can I make changes? Where can I make improvements? Where can I go and stretch out and try something new and experiment?
Thank you. We have a question from Murat, I believe. Let's just come off mute.
Yes, thank you so much for great presentation. I really intrigued by those 3 items: leader, guide, pioneer. When I put those things in the big picture, everything looks perfect. Everything looks very nice, you know, like it works greatly. But my question will be about, like, in professional environment, let's assume that, you know, when you did your company and you just look at your email and there's an enemy pop up and there is negative things is just like it came. You got like negative news and then these negative things is influence on your day, like another things that could come across in your day, and then this like a chain, you know, and my question will be, how can we change our mental things in a way that, you know, make our day efficient, reach to like these leader, guide, pioneer, those three items. Another thing that I would like to add behind of this question, like nowadays, many managers, unfortunately, they are really not the understand of the value of the one of the thing that you mentioned, create environment. That's very important, I believe. You know, like not every manager, unfortunately, aware of the fact that creating environment is very important. It's important because it can unleash your power. So you can be curious, you can try out something new, and you know, flourish and your company. But unfortunately, they just focus on negativity, you know, bring some negative things and, oh, you didn't do this. You could have done very great job, but they are keep bringing like small things that putting you down, and then you are losing your motivation. What I am doing here? Then you are asking those kind of questions yourself. So eventually I would like to ask you, how do you fight those kind of negativity, those kind of managers? How can we create environment where everybody can flourish?
So my first answer to that is going to be not easily. It is something that will take some time, because we're talking about people. We're talking about their personality. We're talking about their sort of situation. Murat, what is your role? Scrum Master?
No,
Agile
I am lead software engineer at my company.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you are still a leader.
Yeah.
That's the important thing. Okay. A leader is not a principle of hierarchy within the company. It is not a role. A leader is somebody that looks to the left and the right of them and goes, you know, I'm interested in developing and growing these people. That's what makes you a leader. And that's where you need to have that idea for creating the right environment. Two books I would recommend for you on this. One of the advantages of sitting in your office, you've got your books next to you. So first one by Daniel. I'll turn it that way.
The Culture
Code. The Culture Code. Okay.
Yeah.
Brilliant book by Daniel Korb. The other one is looking at psychological safety. Now, there are some wonderful videos from her out there, from Amy Edmondson, but that one.
Fearless Organization.
Okay. Those two will help you understand the culture, will help you understand creating that psychologically safe environment, but most importantly, some of the fears and some of the concerns that are out there. Okay. How do you deal with that as an individual when somebody pushes back? I suppose I'm lucky. I have quite a positive temperament. But even though, you know, even that said, you know, it still gets to me at times. I do practice mindfulness. Before I go into meetings, I take a moment to relax. I have, and I've changed her name so I can say Alexa and she won't go off. But I put on some nice music. Let's say a couple of minutes before a meeting, I'll stick on some music. I'll relax. I'll think about something. I might grab a book and just maybe read a little bit. If I've got maybe 15 minutes, you know, I live in Shrewsbury. I'm in a little village on the outskirts. I go for a walk in the countryside. Okay. I let my mind relax and I let my mind not dwell on the things. People can choose to be a certain way if they want to, and they're fully within that right. But when it starts to affect the lives of other people, as a coach, that's where I sort of step in and go, you know, you are having an effect on these people's lives, you know, and as a leader, Stewardship, there's a servant leader attribute coming in, but stewardship is a major part of what you should be doing. And I will work with them. I will make sure that they understand principle number 5 out of the manifesto. Build your team around motivating individuals, give them the right environment and the right support, and trust them to get the job done. And I will help them in understanding that their role is not to command and control, not to micromanage, not to give every single instruction, but to, like David Marquet would say in Turning the Ship Around, give that intent. This is where we need to be going. This is our intent. This is our objective. And then from that, allowing the team to go in the right direction and to make the choices for themselves and to be autonomous. Now, we're still sort of feeling it a little bit from the football, but I'll use a football analogy on this, okay? Think about the players on the field. They've got a brilliant coach on the sideline. The players understand the boundaries of the field, the pitch. They understand the rules of the game. The coach has spent some time with them before the game plays to develop certain skills, hone certain skills. And from the sideline can give instructions because they've got sight of the whole pitch. Okay? But think about it. Every single player on that field is acting autonomously. Even though they are part of a team, they are going to be faced with the situation. And using the skills that they've developed and the experiences that they had and knowing the rules of the game and the boundaries of the pitch, they can choose what to do themselves because they know what the intent is. The intent, funny enough, is not to win the game. The intent is to do the small little things. Make sure that we retain possession of the ball. Make sure that we move the ball down the field. Make sure that we place it in a situation so that somebody can shoot at the goal. And make sure that we defend really well to make sure that when the ball is coming to us, we get hold of the ball and put it back into our possession. You're not trying to win the game. You're trying to do those small things. Now, as long as you understand all of those things, your players can then go and be autonomous. And the same goes from a leadership point of view with our teams. You need to be able to let those leaders understand and realize that, it's not going to be the lunatics taking over the asylum. They're not going to lose power and position or authority. In fact, they're mostly going to gain more of it. It's just going to be a different type of authority, a different type of influence, because people want to do it because they will not see you as somebody that has power, but somebody that empowers. And they will come to you because those people want to be empowered. And they will see those things and take it forward. And when you can try and get your leadership that are negative, the battle that I've been having for the last few months, trying to get the leadership to realize that. And when they do, and when they try it out, a light bulb goes on and they're just completely different types of people. And they suddenly realize the benefits of taking that different approach. Did that answer the question?
Thank you so much.
We'll work you in
Great.
there.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
See if anyone else. Oh.
Is there anybody else, Mr. T?
No, I'm just checking.
So I know Joe's on the call. I can see Joe. It's not like Joe to be silent. And I know Nick's on here as well.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that they could ask abusive things to me.
No, I think you've answered everyone's questions for now.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
questions. And I'll be polite.
Oh, there we go.
So what I would say is go on, have a look on the, like I say, find me on LinkedIn. Go and have a look at the articles. There's a lot more stuff in the articles that I've shared today, and just continue to extend and grow your learning. And if you pick anything up from it and that works for you, please let me know. Share your experiences back. I'd love to be able to hear from you and to learn from your experiences and both your failures and successes as well.
So Prem put her hand up just as you started talking, so she's obviously
got
a question. Sorry.
I put my hand up that if no one is asking, that I will have a question. I meet with lovely, work with lovely Agile coaches in different accounts and different engagements. Most of them have their heart and soul invested in it, and they believe that they are bought into the concept, they are bought into the values and philosophies behind it. But when they start acting, their actions don't speak the words they speak. I can see that they believe in it. They totally want to do it, but sometimes when they are working on it, they are so focused that I want to get this from A to B done. And during that process, they completely miss what's happening here and how it is impacting people around here. And sometimes they end up doing many things they believe they are not doing it. They believe they are not supposed to be doing it. They believe that they are coaching other people not to do it.
Mm-hmm.
How do we
and these are Agile coaches that are displaying these behaviors, these traits?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a really sort of deep question. There are many different types of Agile coaches that are out there. Mm-hmm. Some of them are luckily enough to be very old, like myself, that has gone through and experienced all of those things for themselves and in reality, and therefore can share from those experiences, and hopefully would not portray some of those behaviors. There are others that have been a Scrum Master for, I think the worst example I've seen was somebody that was portraying themselves as an enterprise Agile coach. They had been a Scrum Master for 12 months and an Agile coach for 4 months. Mm-hmm. That is not enough time to get the skills and the craft of Agile coaching. Agile coaching is massive. It's not just about understanding what agility is or understanding what, the manifesto says, or, knowing that it was, written in February 2001 and it was 17 people that got together in, Snowbird in Utah, all right, in the lodge. It's not about knowing those sort of things. I had the great pleasure of spending quite a bit of time with the person that, one of the key people that put together the Agile coaching and competency framework. Okay. I have her book here, Lisa Atkins. I would seriously recommend that. But it's interesting that that was written quite some time ago. And I sat down with Lisa and I said, I've got some concerns about the framework. And her response, being the wonderful agilist that she is, she turned around and said, well, go and change it then, John. So I did. And again, I've got that on LinkedIn as well. All of these things are free and open to, to anybody to pick up. And I changed the top. In the Agile coaching competency framework, originally, it just said Agile and Lean at the top. Now I've broken that down because I'm looking, one section is about Agile and Lean. but another one is about the mindset and the behaviors. Okay. And in so doing, you have to be an exemplar of those things. If you're coming in and you're working and looking at Agile and you're thinking about the manifesto and the principles that sit behind it, you need to be living those things. You need to be the first Agilist. You need to coach by example. You need to share ideas and ask questions and you know, don't just come in and sort of say, you know, off the shelf package, plug and play. That's what Agile is. Go for it. You need to actually ask the questions and talk to the people and say, well, why is it that you want to take this step? You know, and talk to them and understand the why and understand the problems and the issues that they have, and then build something for them. And you need to really sort of pick up on the next bit, which is the people and the influence that you have with them. And you need to understand you should be like a doctor. Okay. I've just noticed, Mr. T, you put on the 12 dimensions. Yes, good spot.
I realised after I'd done it. I'm just about to share the right one.
So
I'm just giving you extra.
Sharing the link to it. He's actually shared the link to another one of mine, which is the 12 dimensions of Agile leadership.
I've now got the right one.
That's the new perspective. Brilliant. So have a look at that one. But for me, an Agile coach should be like a doctor, in as much that a doctor almost commits personally to do no harm. So as a coach, you should be using your experience and your skills for the growth of others, to influence and persuade, not to push or control. You should be leading by example in all of those behaviors. You need to understand truly what the principles of the Agile Manifesto mean and how that they can be applied. And then you need to work in a partnership with the people that you're working with to help them to understand, to help them to grow, and to do it at their pace so that they can truly understand and pick it up. And then, because if you do that, if you engage them in the journey, you know, we're back to that guide part of Sendatsu. If you engage them in the journey and walk alongside them and point out certain things along the way, okay, you're going to get far more of an effect. And those people are going to be far more grateful for what it is you have done.
Thank you.
But that's a big topic all on itself. That one is. That's another evening. What was that, Warwick?
I said that's really nice. I try and join in with the squads and actually when I'm coaching, just sit with them. And you know, if you just leave them to it until they're just going off the rails a bit, and then you just nudge them back in and let them continue.
And even with that, you can sort of say, oh, I can see we're going in this sort of direction. What do you think will happen if we continue down this road? And you get them to go, well, it's that. Oh, yeah, there's a big precipice over that way, isn't there? Yep. So what do you think we can do to sort of bring back? What was our objective again? What is it we're trying to achieve? Okay, right. Well, let's just stick this up. Right. Where are we going? How are we going to pull back on that? What are your thoughts and your ideas? And this is where you've got the other bits. You've got, you know, the teacher part, you've got the coaching part, you've got the mentoring part, as well as facilitating. And you will coach and you will mentor and you will coach. But then you will hit a point where you will realize that they don't actually know what one of the solutions may be. They may never have experienced it. So then you jump to being a teacher. Then once they've learned about it, you then go into a mentor role. and then you make sure that they understand and develop those things properly before jumping back to being a coach and saying, right, now you know these things, how are you going to apply it? What do you think the best steps for us to take are going to be next? And these are exactly the same sort of things that a leader should be doing by setting that intent, by giving that vision, by sharing where it is that, you know, we need to be, but leaving the actual journey, the steps to take up to the team themselves. You know, give them the boundary, give them the rules of the game, let them play, let them go for it, let them play as a team. It might take a little bit longer, but it will be a much better result.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think that's it.
If no one else is asking, I can ask another question.
Over to you, Prem. There isn't. Yeah, over to you, Prem.
Morgan.
I was going to say, thanks, Morgan. Take care, mate.
Yeah.
Thanks, though. Thanks, John. Thanks, Eric. See you.
Cheers, Morgan.
Okay. So my last question, hopefully last question, is did you face any hardship as in any difficult challenge or anything during your either early days? I would prefer something recently, so that, you know, with all the experiences, with the experience and all the learnings, that how did you use that to tackle this particular challenge?
So a real challenge, a real thing that's hit me recently. I'm trying to think of one of the many. I'll be honest, being a coach is a challenge because you're constantly going up against the desires and the wishes and the beliefs of people. I'm trying to think of one that I could actually share with you without being too personal or in that sort of situation. Lean portfolio management. There are certain attributes within lean portfolio management and certain activities. So one that we're having a problem with, we've developed an operating model, we're trying to develop an operating model for an organization to work within. And that lean portfolio management is all of the activities that take place at a higher level that then feed into the flow of work and the way it comes in and the way you break it down. Now, we know that at some point you're going to want to do some form of planning. Whether we call it quarterly planning, quarterly agile planning, big room planning, or maybe even PI planning. Okay? There are lots of different names for exactly the same thing. Now, the challenge that we had is that some of the, and I'll be kind, and again, I'll use the word leadership, maybe not management, but the leadership were saying, right, we are going to have the quarterly planning. That is where all the leaders will come in. We will discuss what it is that we want to deliver. We will run that through, and then we will let the teams know what work they need to be working on in the following sprints. It was a shock to the system. It was a slap to the face. And I basically had to sit with them and use some of those sort of what we would call in the trade powerful questions, those open-ended powerful questions, to try and get them to think about the system that they had in place. And I was like, well, okay, that sounds like an idea. Yeah, we can take that. How do you know about certain technical constraints or anything like that. Oh, we would have to send some people out, and they would have to go and talk with the team, and then we'd understand those things, and then we can bring those back in again, and we can make the decision. Oh, okay. How long does that normally take? Oh, it takes like a few days. Oh, okay, so you've got a few days, a bit of a delay. What about the actual desires of the customers? And and they would say, well, we'd have to go off and speak with the product owner, and then the product owner would go and speak with the stakeholders, and then they would give that. Then they'd bring it back to us, and then we can, make a decision on that. And said, well, how long does that take? Oh, well, that's a number of days. Okay. And I went through a number of these sort of questions, and I said, well, how long does this quarterly planning take you to do? And they were saying, well, anywhere between a month, to actually get it properly sort of cemented and worked out, anywhere between, month and a half. I'm like, okay, do you think that's good? And they were like, well, no. Oh, why do you not think that that's good? Well, it takes too long. And basically, we're trying to get the teams to come back to us quicker and give us the right information so that we can make the right decisions based on their input. I said, is there a way in which you could get a faster response? And they sort of sat back and said, well, they need to be closer to us. They need to be available to us, almost as if they were in the room with us. And I said, well, why not have them in the room with you? What effect would that have? And the whole process was trying to get them to realize that the approach that they were taking was creating lots of bottlenecks, lots of delay, and that by losing some of that, their perceived power and authority, and moving from power to empower, they were then starting to realize, well, actually, if we get all of these people into the room with us, and then we share what it is we're trying to do, and set some sort of vision, they could then actually give us the responses straight away, and we could make, and I said, yeah, as a team, you could make those decisions instantly, and they'd be based on, the real information, the facts. The team is there. Yeah, that could really, really work. And it was really interesting to have that conversation with them. Now, it took months to try and get them to change and to tweak and to look at the way in which they were doing things. All right. But the thing is, it was that slow, steady application of powerful questions, of getting them themselves to look at the situation. I use a 4 A's principle. First, they have to be aware of the situation. They then have to accept where they currently are. They then have to have an aspiration of where they want to go to make some improvements. And then, and this is the big one, they need to be open and humble and willing enough to ask for help. Okay. And I try and use powerful questions and those 4 A's to try and get people to move of their own free will into a point, sort of like, sort of gentle persuasion, into a point where they go, do you know what, it would be better if we actually had all of those people in there. And the funny thing is, they've come up with the idea. It's their idea, and therefore it will have more of an impact when they try and put it in.
Yeah.
It's a bit like a psychological sort of, thriller type thing where you were trying to, play with somebody's brain a little bit. But sometimes we have to try and do that to get people to realize where they actually are, to identify what their real issues are, and some of them were saying, well, the real issues we have is that the amount of time it takes. So how are you going to resolve that? And it's about, shortening the feedback loop, i.e. stick them in the same room, you know, having the right sort of people in there. Or we need to go off and ask the customer something. Is there a problem with having the customer in the room as well? You know, inception decks, putting those sort of things. Oh, do you mean inception as in the movie, or is an inception deck? You know,
planting a seed and let them think they've come up with the idea.
Exactly. You know, but also inception decks from the Agile Samurai by Jonathan Rasmussen. Chapters 3, 4, and 5. Absolute brilliant way of visualizing and getting those ideas across and getting them to think about things and think, oh, actually, these are our problems and these are our stakeholders and these are our teams, and actually start to bring those people together and say, well, actually, we can make some decisions here. I believe the term he uses is getting everybody on the bus.
Thank you.
Cool. Thank you. So I think John's answered quite a lot of our questions. I'd just like everyone to come off mute, and if you'd join me in giving John a round of applause. Thank you.
I'll give over. Oh dear.
Thank you very much.
It's been my pleasure. It really has. It really has.
Do this. Hopefully it'll allow me again. So, after that amazing talk, what is next? So, the next meeting will be 10th of August, next meetup. Alan Jennings will be joining us, another Agile coach. I've worked with Alan myself, just like with John. Alan's going to do 10 quick tools to level up your coaching tool belt. You can find myself and Prem on LinkedIn, and you can send feedback via Telford Agile email there, or via the Meetup or a LinkedIn post or message to us. This is sponsored by Capgemini, so I've got my emails up there in case you're interested in a career with Capgemini. They've asked me to announce that they do have our first ever UK degree apprenticeship going live. There are 3 days left to apply for it, but if you know someone who's has GCSEs, maths and English A to C grade, and has either got a level 3 BTEC or pre A levels or an A level free advanced apprenticeship pass, I think it's called, a passion for technology, they can apply to Capgemini. They get a full degree. I believe it's run out of Manchester Metropolitan. It's all paid for by Capgemini, which is quite nice. Obviously, you get a salary as well, but you do have to work and you have to go to university at the same time. But that's something that's new this year to Capgemini, and they're looking for people to apply.
Two things that I can give on that one as well. You do get time off to go to university and to do some of your work. And there's a real advantage because you're actually working in the environment as well. Well, guess what? That enables you to do a much better job at your degree and gives you a much higher grade.
Yeah.
So it's a brilliant, brilliant way of doing it.
Yeah. And for that UX, there will be, you'll be able to present and split and maybe specialize in content design or interaction design or user research. But that's once you get to know what those are like and what you enjoy. There's also a list of open positions there in Telford and Worthing. If anyone's interested in them, my email address is at the top. Drop me a line, I'll send you the right link. Okay. And with that,
and we're always looking, Warwick, we're always looking for Agile coaches as well.
You'll have to send me the details.
Count me in, John. I would have never have left. I would have never have left Cap if I had not transferred over to PDF.
There we go. So with that, I'd like to say thank you. I look forward to seeing you all. Myself and Prem look forward to seeing you all next month.
Excellent.
And thanks again to John.
My pleasure.
Okay.
Yeah, cheers, John. It's really, really
Thanks,
insightful.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.